Book review, take 4. I'm not even kidding that this is the 4th take. Yeah, various parties have walked on set and made this very difficult for me to put on online for you fine folks, but we uh, we aspire to complete our task. As you all know, this is the video channel for R. Adrianus, writer. Indulgent in everything from books, films, comic books, and today we're going to be talking about a very important book, something really relevant that's going to be coming out later this year. You may have heard of a little movie called Ender's Game. It's going to be coming out later. Surprise, surprise, it's actually based off of a book. Yeah, I know. It got me by surprise too. No, it didn't. I actually had the pleasure of reading this book earlier this year with my little tightly woven book club. And we were just taken aback when we found out there was going to be a movie made. It was already in production at the time, I guess, and we didn't find this out until we found the movie poster online. So it was like really great, where everyone's like, "Oh, there's going to be a movie. It's probably going to suck." I hope it doesn't suck, but that remains to be seen. So we'll see. Once I hit the theater and get a chance to watch this movie, we'll see if it stays true to the book and how good the movie in itself is. But we're not here to talk about the movie. We're here to talk about the book Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. From here on in, you might want to be aware of the inevitable spoiler alerts, so yeah, keep that in mind. Tread softly, because we're going to be going over some stuff. Not too spoilery, I'll try not to give a lot away, but if you're kind of afraid, you might want to skip to later in the video to get our final thoughts. Shifting around, yeah. You never see newscasters shift around. They're always just robotic and very sturdy. And today on the YouTube channel, no, we're not going to do any of that nonsense here, but we're going to be talking about this book. So firstly, Ender's Game is a staple of the science fiction and young adult genre. It's actually so much so that it's kind of transcended its own genre. People are starting to revere it more as just a classic of the science fiction canon. It's almost just like even the fiction canon. It's just people don't really recognize it so much as like, oh, it's a great sci-fi book or it's a great young adult book. People are just like, it's just a great book. You need to read this book. I don't think it's quite there where it's going to be required on high school reading lists. That would be the day. That would be awesome, actually. And I do think it's worthy of such a position where we tell young teenagers, hey, you need to read this. Like, you have to read it. There's going to be a book report later. Do they still do book reports? I don't even know. Ender's Game, it's, as obviously the title suggests, it follows our protagonist, Ender Wiggin, born Andrew Wiggin, but his nickname kind of, is the focal signature of him. He's born as a child's genius. In this world, children are actually genetically modified to be born as geniuses for the sake of defending humankind. Humankind has actually survived an alien invasion from the aliens known as buggers, and they were fought back, but then humanity still feels that they're in danger and that an impending threat might be very possible. So they want their children to be intellectually apt to defend them, to become commanders in the fleet, and hopefully fend off the buggers another time, even take the fight to them, to their home planet. And that's where we find Ender. He's actually going to become a child soldier, a child commander, and potentially lead the fleet to fight against these buggers. It's so funny they're called buggers. I'm just keep picturing some British guy like, oh, we're gonna go fight these buggers. Like, oh, jolly good, let's go kick their asses. It's like, yeah, buggers. It just doesn't register with me. I don't think it's one of those really serious names. Obviously, it's kind of derived from the way they look. They said that they look like bugs, so I mean that makes sense. And they're kind of a hive mind. Spoiler alert: you've been warned already. Yeah, they're a hive mind race, so it's pretty interesting. I mean, yeah, they are bugs, in fact, I guess. But British guy in the back of my head keeps telling me otherwise. Yeah, Ender, he's a very, I guess, empathizable character. You feel kind of bad for him because of what he's experiencing. He's a child. He has to forego the years that he would traditionally have to mature, of his own natural course. He has to do away with all of that in order to hone his mind and refine his intelligence so he can become this great commander and great soldier. And it is a sad aspect of the story. It is slightly tragic to see this because, childhood has died for Ender, for all of his peers. All the different children who have been taken to battle school, they're no longer children. They have to become adults instantaneously in order to take on these challenges that are, put in front of them. And it is very compelling though, because you do kind of see like, oh, what if we did this? What if children were put in these circumstances, and would they thrive or would they crumble? And you do see some of these children, they do start to crumble. They kind of develop even a psychosis almost because of the way they're being treated. They're not being mistreated, but they are being treated as adults, and that could have adverse effects on children. I mean, when you try to make a child do something that a soldier of in his late teens, early 20s would do in basic training, that child's gonna have some issues. I mean, Ender himself kind of has issues reconciling the way he is, whether or not he's really a child, what kind of person he's being developed into. And and you see that not only him, but also his peers. And it is very really good character design, and also it's also a nod to the environment that Scott Card has created for his characters, because it's the world they live in, it's the world they have to survive in, and they're basically, the arena has been set, and we're just viewing it from afar, and it is a good ride, but it's also very sad. Pacing in the novel is excellent. We don't see a lot of exposition to the point where it becomes beleaguering, and also we don't see dialogue so much where it's beleaguering. And there's also an air of mystery with some of the characters, because you see that many, and it also acts as dramatic irony, where we know that there's characters actually watching Ender, while he doesn't even know it, but we know it as the reader. We know that Ender, every move that he's doing, every action, every interaction he has is being perused and examined to see, what is this going to result in later, in his military career, if this is going to make him into a proper commander, maybe the one who will in fact save humanity from the buggers. But yeah, it's a very finely knit story. Like I mentioned, it has good pacing. The conceptualization of the world itself is very good. Luckily, Scott Card doesn't make it a point to kind of crush his reader with so much detail about the world, that they're like, okay, we get it, we're in a sci-fi world, can we just move on? I hate those, like, you have writers who will go on for 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, a whole page about the way the freaking grass looks. It's like, come on, we get it. If you're trying to be symbolic, allegorical, if you're trying to, whatever you're trying to do, you could have done that in a couple of well-written sentences, or maybe even a paragraph. The paragraph to end all paragraphs, that would have blown my mind. But luckily, Scott Card, he's not one to, kind of muddle with the words. He's not one to be too lavish with his words. It's very finely knit, like I mentioned. And I mean, look at this book. I mean, I don't know if this gives you any perspective, but it's actually a pretty thick book. I mean, the way it's printed, it's hardy, but it's not too hardy. But I mean, this is a pretty minimal format as far as the way the story is written, but it's still pretty large. So imagine if you had somebody else who was writing a similar story, or writing even the same concept, and they were just so lavish in the writing, and we would have something that would be thick as the freaking Bible, and I just couldn't take that. So, like I mentioned, great pacing, I guess great marginalizing of the writing itself. And I guess one of the final things we can talk about is the resolution of Ender's Game. This is where the spoiler alert should really kick in. If you haven't already steered away and you really are worried about the ending, and steer away now. I'm not going to ruin the twist too bad, but there is a twist, so that's the spoiler. There's a twist to this book. And it actually occurs maybe about 3/4 of the way in the book, and then you have a fourth of the book left to kind of reconcile what just happened. It's something that's very critical to Ender's development and kind of his realization of his actions, up until the point of the twist. I feel like I'm being so ambiguous here, but people who have read the book, who are watching this, you'll understand what I'm talking about, and you're probably out there going, yep, totally felt that. Like, you get what I'm saying. Those of you who have not read the book, but who have been daring enough to kind of watch this video up until this point and will go read it, you'll see what I mean when you get to this twist. You're gonna be like, holy crap, or maybe you won't be holy crap because you know that there's a twist now and you're just looking for the twist. I hate those people. They're in the movies like, oh, I bet the killer is her boyfriend. Like, stop trying to call it the twist, guys. Try to leave an air of mystery, but I guess you ruined that for yourself because you're watching this video. But yeah, the twist, it does impact you a lot. It's kind of like a meteor, strike right in the middle of your sensibilities of the story, and there's so many consequences once the twist has reached fruition, and it is both something that's a success, but it also makes you realize kind of how much we've lost as a race, because Ender in his actions sees that he's been so developed and he's been so minimized to his singular function of intelligence, of deciphering the weaknesses of his enemy. That's what he's doing. He's becoming the greatest commander that has ever existed, and he shows that with flying colors. And when you reach that point where you see how that happens, it's yeah, it's pretty, I wouldn't say it's cataclysmic, but it does leave an impression. Like I said, it's a rough ride. But Ender's Game is an excellent read. It's excellent for anybody who does enjoy science fiction. As a young adult novel, not so much. The young adult genre has kind of been stigmatized to be a more romantic notion of writing. But young adult novels, it's kind of coming of age. Understanding oneself as they go through this really turbulent time of their lives, namely their teenage years. This is a young adult novel. I wouldn't say it's a children's book. They always try to define it by what the age the protagonist is. If you were to say this is a young adult novel, it'd be wrong because Ender's not a teenager. If you were to say this is a children's novel, that'd be wrong as well because Ender doesn't act like a child. He's an adult in all respects. So, yeah, it's just a great science fiction novel. It's a great novel just by itself. Definitely read it before the film. That would be my suggestion. There are a lot of people who kind of try to give themselves different experiences. They'll go watch a film and then read the book that it was based off of and kind of get the feel like how that works with them. I've always felt it best the opposite, because you do want to read the core material first and then see how it's been changed, if they've derived anything straight from the book, what they've modified. If they do it, does it make it better, does it make it worse? That you get a really fruitful experience from reading the book first. So that would be just my humble opinion. Obviously everyone else has their own responses to the book to film, I guess watching a book that's been made into a film. So just take it for what you will. We'll be doing another edition of the Sit Downs tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this review. Make sure to subscribe and to like, and we'll be doing more reviews in the next couple of days. We're going to be doing something more for manga and comic books, so I'll leave that as a little bit of mystery for you to see what we're going to be doing. Yeah, hope you enjoyed. Peace and love, and we'll be seeing everyone tomorrow for the Sit Downs. Thanks a lot.